Crystal Mangum. Okay, so I'm watching.
Mangum.
I'm just getting ready for work.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, CNN is on for a second, and there's this big headline. Crystal Mangum admits that she falsely made an accusation of sexual assault in the Duke University lacrosse player's case 18 years prior.
And then you spent 20 minutes trying to figure out her last name.
No, I was doing today. It was harder today.
Right.
But and then I watched. I just stood there. Now I took a picture of it and I put it up on X, because then for the next 10 minutes or so, I saw these various guests come on and speak, who were talking about the wrongfully accused and false allegations and all this virtual signaling bullshit that never comes out.
Here's where things
before
unleash.
And what comes to mind is when our own Supreme Court in a recent Supreme Court of Canada case said, if the defense raises an allegation of fabrication, the court is obligated to assess it. Otherwise, it would be a reversible error, although false allegations are rare. Okay? So
bad.
Again, we take the position that there's legitimate offenses of sexual assault that occur by men against women. 100%.
Vice versa.
We don't say that. But because of our practice, we see a disproportionate amount of people where there are false allegations. I just have a difficult time with people saying that I promulgate a myth that women make up allegations of sexual assault. And then I see it on CNN, and there's all these virtual signalers coming on talking about false allegations and the damage it plays. And it just made me angry, because it's only in certain high-profile cases where it's going to get this attention. But for the poor guy,
average guy who
we're representing, who's tortured at the end of 2 years and is acquitted, and is left to pick up the pieces afterward. There's no somebody who comes on from some organization I never heard to talk about this.
There's no talking head.
So more than 18 years after 3 former Duke University lacrosse players accused of raping her, a falsified account she shared in a graphic detail, Crystal Mangum has admitted she lied about the encounter. In an interview on a web show published last week, Mangum apologized to the men and said her relationship with God has made her understand why she fabricated the story. Mangum is...
That's reassuring.
...in prison, serving a sentence for second-degree murder for killing her boyfriend. Wonderful person.
Yeah, clearly.
And just on this one we printed out, you can see this is a picture of her crying, and I don't know if she's holding a tissue, but this is from her wiping away tears during a press conference on the release of her book, The Last Dance for Grace, the Crystal Mangum story.
It's when she met God.
2008. Yeah. This is 2008. So this was her book. She's crying and still holding on to this story. So for those of you who may remember, this was a big deal.
But it makes sense. Now she can write the sequel. Yeah. I lied. That'll sell.
It probably will. But I just, it did send me off the deep end, because I'm watching literally these women come up for these groups about false allegations, and I'm like, where the are you in actually coming out and actually let's having studies, let's get some empirical data, let's deal with this, let's put some mechanisms in place to deal with demonstrably false allegations so that we can maybe curb this. That would actually help real victims of violence. It will have the opposite effect of quelling people who want to come forward, because those with legitimate allegations can actually get them heard. But leaving that aside, it just really bothered me.
You've got a long Christmas wish list this year.
Well, it just bothered me because, again, so this was a very,
scary case.
Scary case where, these lacrosse players were
3
having
guys have a party, house party.
Yep.
They hire her and a group of strippers.
Maybe not the best judgment at that time, but nothing illegal.
Nothing illegal. No.
They hire 3 strippers or some group of them.
Some group of strippers. They show up, and one thing allegedly led to another, but it didn't.
Yeah. So this particular complainant was being driven home by one of the accused, or driven somewhere. She wouldn't get out of the car. She was in horrible shape. She might have been using drugs. He stops, gets the help of a security guard. Eventually, the police are called. She is then in the care of the police, and she's taken to somewhere because it looks like she's quite unstable, being on drugs. And she then gives this allegation that she's sexually assaulted. There are these, an investigation ensues the next day. There's all sorts of frailties with the way the police went through the identification lineup. But to these young men credit, they immediately give statements. They give voluntary DNA samples,
which is not linked to anything.
They're suspended from the team for play, even before the charges were laid. The DNA tests that are done by a government laboratory fail to link any of the lacrosse players to the scene, according to a disciplinary order which was filed against the then prosecutor. Guy.
He got booted, though.
He goes to a private lab to have tests redone,
right.
And there's some trace of possibly male DNA.
Right.
Based on that, in April of 2006, the prosecutor, Nifong, N-I-F-O-N-G, formally charges 2 of the lacrosse players with rape, according to the material. The charges are based largely on her testimony,
Forensics
as
are
the forensic
still-
evidence is inconclusive or absent.
Still
Okay?
inconclusive.
Then he later on
Adds the third guy.
adds the third guy and charges him. There is a massive fallout because this is why I also criticize the United States. So the prosecutor takes to the media and gives
misleading statements.
well, but he gives briefings
right.
Immediately about the case, and if I'm right, he had some insane amount of interviews.
Yes, he did.
57 interviews or something on this.
He was getting ready to write his book, probably.
And on the, it gives misleading information, suppresses DNA evidence.
Yeah, the whole shooting match.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And I remember I was a young lawyer when this was out. Well, not so young. I mean, I'd been in practice, I guess, over 13, 14 years. But anyways, it's very, very serious what this prosecutor did. But it's a perfect example also of how you tarnish. And what I criticize the United States about is they litigate these cases in the media. This guy was just a f***ing media hound. And fortunately, he got disbarred eventually and went to jail for having breached something.
At a huge cost to these 3 guys.
Horrible cost to
Huge
them.
costs.
But then the state's attorney general comes in April of 2007, and he announces there's insufficient evidence to proceed on any charges. But he goes farther and says that these young men are innocent.
Right.
And we believe that this case is a result of a tragic rush to accuse and a failure to verify serious allegations based on the significant consistencies between the evidence and the various accounts given by the accused witnesses. Which is nice that, at least they took that into consideration.
This was all like reverse discrimination. So the prosecution ordered 46 of the 47 lacrosse team members to provide DNA samples.
Why only 46?
Because the sole black member of the team was exempt because she stated her attackers were white.
Correct.
Like, seriously?
So this attorney general fortunately makes a very good public statement saying we believe these individuals are innocent of these charges. But this does, when lawsuits are filed and the 3 players file a civil lawsuit against the city of Durham, the particular prosecutor Nifong, and other individuals, Durham settles the lawsuit in part with a one-time grant to the North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission. I don't know what else happened to the lawsuits.
Yeah, but still problematic. Cooper. So Cooper's the Attorney General for North California.
No, North Carolina.
I'm sorry, North Carolina. So he takes the unusual step. They call this unusual.
Maybe there will be a North and South
Maybe.
California.
It's coming.
We'll see.
Well, haven't you seen the Purge movies? Cooper also took the unusual step of declaring the accused players innocent. Unusual, but I guess.
Important.
Yeah, he announced that Mangum, okay, let's do the name again, whatever her name is, would not be prosecuted, stating that the investigators and attorneys who had interviewed her thought she may actually believe the many different stories that she has been telling. It's in the best interest of justice not to bring charges against her.
Yeah, can you say that again? Now, look, let's.
That's page 6 of the wiki.
she may believe at that time portions of what she said to police were true,
Right.
even though it's not true,
Right.
and she wasn't prosecuted.
But she may actually believe. So let's not bother her, trouble her. Let's wait till she tries to kill her boyfriend and gets charged with second-degree murder.
The prosecutor, there was justice in this, because the prosecutor, who was brought up before the North Carolina bar, faced a number of disciplinary charges, accusing him of making false public statements that were prejudicial to the administration of justice,
Ethic violations.
and heightened public condemnation of the accused, and of engaging in conduct involving dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or other misrepresentation. He was violating rules of professional conduct, listing more than 100 examples of statements that he made to the media, all of which was likely to be completely and utterly false.
Right.
And again, I think in spite of that, over the years, cases often are played out in the media, and I think that should be a cautionary tale to be very careful about what is said into the media. Thank God we're in Canada and that doesn't happen. But I had to bring this up because it is only 18 years later, and it makes headline news that she finally, from jail,
Right.
on some podcast, admits to what everybody knew was that she lied
Right.
about every aspect of the allegations.
Well, as I said, it's book royalties time.
I made up a story that wasn't true because I wanted validation from people and not from God.
Yeah, okay. But now she's met God, so it's all good.
It's not good.
No, I know.
It's fucking disgusting.
It truly is.
And this should be, what these young men had suffered, and they had suffered far less than many other people who are falsely accused.
Right.
And they had, fortunately, a lot of alibi evidence.
Lots of exonerating evidence.
Lots of exonerating evidence.
Yes.
Which doesn't happen to every victim of a false allegation.
No, rare, quite rarely in many of our cases.
But this has to be a cautionary tale for any jurisdiction that prosecutes any types of offenses, that there can never be that you just fucking operate from the belief that it's true.
Right.
You have to investigate.
Beyond he says, she says.
And in this case, the accused gave statements.
Yeah.
Now, we often tell people not to give statements, but they gave statements, and they took into consideration the inconsistencies between those statements and her own version of events.
Right.
It was important in this case.
Right.
But again, this is something that should not be forgotten.
No.
And what these young men suffered was extremely serious.
For over a year.
And this should not be. Look, it would be interesting to interview them now and see how they still feel about this and how it impacted their educations and their lives. But CNN and then all these virtue signalers come on, and then it disappears.
Push
after
you
a
over
while.
the edge. I know.
Let's look at something else interesting, because
Here we go.
it's just it's just the United States, and every so often we want to deal with this in a different way. But there's allegations. They were originally against Sean Diddy Combs of sexual assault of one particular person. We know he's hosting.
Yeah.
He's in trouble for hosting these parties, and he's facing just a wide range of
Whole
offenses.
slew, yeah.
But there is this one case where a 13-year-old has made allegations in a civil suit against Sean Diddy Combs of sexually assaulting her when she was 13 at an award show after party, and she herself publicly has acknowledged certain inconsistencies in her story, while her lawyer said they'll continue to vet her claims but move forward. Then added to the lawsuit was Jay-Z. And what is reported, again, and you're dealing with, leaving aside Mr. Combs' issues, right. You've got, Jay-Z, who is, one of the most prolific music artists, has lots of money and the wherewithal and ability to arm himself with excellent lawyers, be able to speak publicly and speak publicly strongly so that people listen. But this is something that we don't often, have in Canada, where You go through the public scrutiny of what somebody says about their allegation. There's an acknowledgement that there's certain inconsistencies in her story. And the way this will then be framed through the public litigation of this, and I'm talking about the media litigation of this, is that
trial by media.
Is that he'll be able to get his narrative out right away, and has said, this is absolutely false. This didn't happen. He went right after the lawyer. But this is a case, again, I just want to be clear. The woman first sued Combs, alleging she was raped at this party, then amended the lawsuit recently to add Jay-Z, and who was also at the party, and she alleged participated in the sexual assault. Jay-Z, in a statement, named the lawyer, referred to him as a personal injury.
1-800 lawyer?
Yeah, referred to him as a personal injury lawyer in Houston, who filed a false complaint against him for money and fame. And you know, I said this on podcasts a million times, I'm always deeply concerned when then there's the lawsuit, and then no criminal prosecution or criminal prosecution after the lawsuit, and especially in the United States, because the numbers for judgments is astronomical, okay? And you go after these two, I'm not sure how much Mr. Combs will have left in his accounts at the end of the day, but Jay-Z is a very successful and, as I said, prolific artist, so he's an easy target, and we've spoken about this before. And he says the incident didn't happen, and yet this lawyer filed it in court and doubled down on it in the press. True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory. This was over before it began. This 1-800 lawyer doesn't realize it yet, but soon will.
They probably got T-shirts made.
And the lawyer representing Jay-Z has already asked the court to dismiss the case, stating it is stunning that a lawyer would not only file such a serious complaint without proper vetting, but would make things worse by further paddling the story to the press. There you go in the United States. And she herself has publicly admitted to making some mistakes when recalling that night. And there's been a fair amount of analysis done and publicly refuting a number of things that she said. And one might say that these are maybe peripheral ideas. It's the same type of peripheral facts. It's the same type of bullshit we face here sometimes. But credibility is everything. Of course. But yesterday, a lawyer admitted that over 50 people falsely claimed to be victims. Today, for the second time this week, Busby's plaintiff had been exposed. And the litigation is part of a wave of sexual assault lawsuits alleged against Combs. And it seems like to me that other parties are added in simply to try and get at money.
That's how it works in the States.
And various portions of her evidence, I guess, has been investigated and found to be inaccurate. But as one would argue, on the core of the allegation, who can refute that other than Jay-Z and the other one, Mr. Combs. But
I know.
I'm calming down.
He's
but
calming down.
It's
it's taking him less time to calm down, I find.
It's a combination of things, right?
Yes.
And they get play in the United States because high profile, the media just ran with her in this f***ing book release, and this was a high profile case. We're talking high profile defendants here. I firmly, take wholeheartedly when somebody says I'm not guilty, this didn't happen. I take that, with value and import. But this will only get the attention of who you're dealing with.
Right.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't get that attention. And again, as I've said before, I have great difficulty with how everything is litigated in the media in the United States. I do not believe it leads to getting to the truth of a matter, although in this case, one might say, because of the foolishness of a lawyer and the foolishness of other parties, inconsistencies can be exposed and you can undercut the allegations right at the get-go, which may be very good for the defendants in this case. But I don't think the public display is ever good for anybody. But in Canada, if there's a lawsuit filed and if there's charges filed, you will never get this type of attention. Oh, God, no. And at the core of what's important here to me for this one podcast was just my anger about how God, I'm repetitive. But how these groups will come out and talk about false accusations. They're real. Yes. They happen. We have to protect against them. And I literally, I listened to these two speakers and my mouth must have hit the floor.
Probably, not
because
you.
it's stuff that we talk about, but now they come out and they'll disappear again,
right.
and it'll go nowhere. It's not just about, innocence projects and clearing people because of DNA and in homicide cases. It's about people just f***ing lying. Why? For so many reasons. So many reasons. And when it's stated in social media or in other public forums that false accusations are a myth or are extremely rare, that's a myth and that's a lie. And that does us a disservice.
Of course it does, especially to all those people we've represented over the years.
And there's no recourse because, of course, nobody gets charged.
Or sued.
Now, well, I mean, you can't sue them in Canada, but
nobody does.
It's not as easy.
It's not as easy.
And you may be dealing with somebody who is impecunious or doesn't have significant assets to pay a judgment in any event.
I don't know about you, but I'm getting these questions now after I win a trial. And one of the questions is now becoming, can we sue her?
We've done podcasts on it. Can you sue for defamation? Can you sue for... Yeah, you can bring a lawsuit, but your chances of success depending upon the judgment that you get.
Assets.
If it's just a withdrawal, it gets relitigated in civil court.
Right.
Who knows?
So we're not doing a 1-800-LAW number.
I've never wanted to do a 1-800-LAW number.
Yeah, I don't think it would work.
But let these be a reminder to carefully scrutinize any allegation that comes out. There should not be a public rush to judgment.
Right.
There should not be an investigative rush to judgment. There should be calm, objective assessment and analysis of every single case. We should not be frightened as a society. Our justice system and our strength in the belief of seeking for the truth can withstand believing that people lie about allegations.
I think so.
I think it can survive that.
I think it's, yeah.
And it won't necessarily do a disservice to real victims who want to come forward with allegations.
Nope.
It will do a service to our system. And when you talk about, I think we're moving through our backlog in the court system fine. I don't think the Jordan case has been particularly great for the criminal justice system. But when you talk about the amount of cases which are in criminal courts, it'd be nice if you could weed out the garbage and not subject people to having their lives turned upside down by cases that are really without merit.
Yeah, the revenge cases, we get so many.
But I think we can survive it, and there are so many people who go, what do you mean revenge case? Nobody would ever do that.
No one would ever accuse me falsely.
So maybe this was a short podcast, but I had to bring this up, and I just can't. This is not an anomaly, guys. The crying with the book.
Right.
It's not an anomaly. It's just not a fucking anomaly.
Right.
It happens, accept it, and let's move forward in a positive, constructive manner.
Done.
Okay, if you like anything that we say, you can like, share, and subscribe. Please comment, send emails.
You're okay, I think. You did.
Blood pressure's going down.
Yeah,
Thank you for letting me get this one out of my system.
We'll do it again very soon.
Yeah, so we're closing out 2024.
Wow.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Everybody enjoy themselves. Have good times with friends and family, and we'll see you back in 2025.
Wow.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.